Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is going to be a video response to Rod, Happy Hippie, the vinyl guy. This is a response to his, what was it called? The Day the Music Died thread. Um, cool thread idea, and it's kind of exactly like it sounds. He just wanted us to kind of share, some different thoughts and feelings about artists that have passed away. Maybe kind of thinking back and sharing where you were when you heard the news and kind of how it made you felt and all that good stuff, if you can call it good stuff. Um, and then also maybe kind of sharing some stuff about some artists that passed away where maybe you weren't necessarily at an age where you were listening to them or really into them or whatever, but still kind of big and impactful and all of that. So yeah, it was definitely kind of an interesting thing to reflect on because one thing that I have done since I've been kind of collecting music, the past 10 plus years or whatever, is whenever an artist does die, I usually do kind of take the time to sit down that day and just kind of write a little kind of reflection piece, you know, where I'll just kind of write, the day and just some of my thoughts, what was going through my mind, when I heard it and blah blah blah. And then it's just like a big sticker I just put on the back of, some of their vinyl records, or at least one of their vinyl records. So that's something I've kind of done for a number of years, and I have a lot in my collection that have that big sticker on the back. So it was kind of interesting just to go back and actually focus and pick some of those out and read them again and kind of reflect a little bit. So yeah, so cool contest to kind of drive me to reflect on that stuff again. So as you can see on the first one here, this was for Janie Lane, of course, for Warrant. I remember when he passed away, and I think that was in. See, I wrote this on 8/12/2011. I think he died on 8/11. I think it was the day after he died. I wrote this, but yeah, I mean, Warren is definitely one that I have to put on my list mainly because you know Warren was kind of one of those big bands within my childhood. I've always told the story about moving to the new neighborhood and meeting new friends and being introduced to new music where hair metal and all that stuff first comes to me. And that was right, during that Warrant and Skid Row and all that stuff. And Warrant and Skid Row were two bands that, my best friend John and I just listened to all the time. So there were so many songs from Warrant that marks, some significant time periods in my childhood and memories, good memories. So yeah, when he passed away, that was definitely one that was very, very, very impactful. And that was one too. I think I remember just, I think I was just kind of sitting in my music room watching some different things on YouTube, and some videos came up that and just kind of follow the trail type of thing and learn about his passing. So yeah, that's definitely one on the list. And I tried to pick out a few too here. There's some that are more than obvious that I kind of chose to avoid. I mean, it'll be very easy from obviously David Bowie's a very easy one. Freddie Mercury, Leonard Skinner, George Michael, Prince. I mean, those are ones that are just I just kind of felt were so obvious that I tried to maybe look at something besides Hendrix, all the blah blah blah. So yeah, so that there was one, I think, well, I guess maybe two, but anyway, so one very very obvious one that I did want to include though, which is of course Michael Jackson. And I think I wanted to, even though he's one of the obvious ones that would flow right there with Bowie and all of them, I wanted to include this one because I think from a standpoint of knowing exactly where I was and what I was thinking, this might be one of the passings that is most like seared into my mind. Because I remember listening to the radio. I was on the way home from work, and I'll never forget. I was right in the halfway through the turn of getting onto the exit between Highway 63 and Highway 54. Like right halfway through the turn when I heard on the radio that Michael Jackson had passed away. It was like very, very, you know, extremely clear of where I was when I heard that. And obviously that was gigantic news as Michael Jackson. I mean, it was Michael Jackson. So, that was one thing that was kind of very impactful. And the other thing that I remember too, and it's kind of what I'd even written on the back of here, it was kind of an interesting thought that I had on the way home too, because it was about a 20-minute drive from home from that turning point where I was. And I remember as I was driving and kind of thinking, obviously you start reflecting on life and you think about death and you think about, this and that. And one of the things that really hit me throughout that thought process in my mind was, you know, Michael Jackson was obviously Michael Jackson. I mean, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, pop star like the world has ever seen. I mean, when you think about his impact and you think about just like how many lives that, people that worshiped him and blah, 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 blah. But then I was also having that thought process, and God did not see it fit to give him one more day, but he saw fit to give me one more day and give me another day of health and to give me another day of, sound mind and body and so forth. And so that was one of the things too that I thought that was really impactful about his passing was, as much as it punched, there was also really this reflecting piece just to kind of show, because again, I'm a very spiritual person, I'm a very religious person, and it just kind of one of those things where we can get locked up in the fame, we can get locked up in all these different things, but we each can have very special and significant meaning, and you can look at yourself and act and take to heart and rejoice in the fact that there's a day when someone like Michael Jackson's not looked after, but yet God has taken the time to make sure that you are looked after. And so again, that was just one of those very positive type of reflection things that I remember feeling and thinking about on the way home from after hearing that news about Michael. I mean, let's say obviously that was a definitely, I think, the biggest loss experienced in my lifetime, I would have to say. Now, some of the others here, again, these are kind of more significant losses, and I think only maybe one of these actually took place, at kind of during my lifetime where it was immediate impact to me. A lot of it I discovered kind of later. One I should have pulled out and I didn't. Otis Redding, I think, is another one. Again, died long before I was actually into him, but the story of his passing, and actually seeing, the actual remnants of his plane. If you look on my YouTube page here and you go to my channel, you'll see that Otis Redding, whatever, not avatar, but the Otis Redding thing is on the side of my page, and that's actually from the side of his airplane, that they pulled out of the water. So that's definitely one that's very impactful to me, just kind of knowing that story and knowing, kind of who he was, and having a chance to sit down with Porter, the guy who did a lot of writing over there with Stax and did a lot of the work with Otis, and having a chance to sit down with him and listen to very personal and just firsthand stories of all of that. I'm very connected to his passing, even though I wasn't there. And kind of the same thing too, with these two legends, Richie Valens and Buddy Holly. Even though this was, took place long before me and even long before I got into them and their music, it's still just one of those stories that's just very impactful to me. And when I think about how they passed and seeing pictures of like the little memorial that people kind of made at the crash site, I mean, it's just a very, very impactful thing. So I'm sure it's on a lot of people's lists. With all those other names I mentioned before, Lennon is another one you can kind of put in that category. Dave Ruffin, most people probably remember him as the first lead singer with the Temptations, and again, I really discovered him more so after he passed, but it's still one of those stories that just kind of really hits me. Just hearing about his history, some of the things that he struggled with, and so forth. I don't know. It's just one of those things that really still has an effect on me. Bobby Womack, you know, he passed away actually not too long ago either. And I remember just kind of sitting and watching the news. I was just, just sitting on my couch one day after work and saw the news come on, and it's like, yeah, and again, another great that. And the thing about him is, I knew good stuff about him, but I've actually discovered, deeper into his catalog since his passing, a lot more than I knew before, and I thought I knew a lot before. But so that's definitely another one. Dimebag, from Pantera. And again, I I I really wasn't into Pantera when Dimebag died. I kind of got much more into them later, but this again was one of the stories that, the impacts of, you know an artist actually being shot on stage, type of thing. It just made it more. I don't know. It adds something to the story that just makes you connect with it more. I mean, Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and on, and you could always hear about drug overdoses and this, and sadly that almost becomes kind of like commonplace. It's like you're not as shocked by it when people do something to kind of take themselves out, driving crazy or committing suicide, or but when someone's just on stage playing and some guy just comes out of nowhere and shoots them, I mean, it's hard for that not to have quite an impact. So that's definitely one that, again, I wasn't into Pantera at the time that it happened, so I didn't experience it from like you know, next day finding out. But the very last one I want to show here, and this actually, I think the most impactful thing about Teddy Pendergrass is maybe not even his passing, which of course was horrible and very sad, but actually kind of his accident that led towards his passing, I think, was the more impactful thing for him. For those that maybe that don't know, Teddy Pendergrass, obviously a huge R&B star, and he was. I've always kind of defined him as, James Brown is, the hardest working man in show business, because James went out there and like danced his tail off and just, basically ran like a marathon, it seemed, each performance. But Teddy Pendergrass was a hardworking man too, but his thing was more kind of the sex appeal type of thing. Like, he was the guy on stage with his shirt open all the way down to his belly button, and just like sweating like crazy, just singing so hard and so passionate, and women just throwing their panties on the stage, and like, he was Mr. Sex Appeal. That was his thing, and not where he was trying to be dirty. It was just that's the energy that he gave off. So when he got into a car accident one night at the peak of his career and was paralyzed from the neck down, and I mean, like, and eventually, that led to problems, and he ended up passing away a few years later. But like, that was extremely impactful, and I do remember, my mom talking about that when it took place, and I don't know, even though I didn't know Teddy Pendergrass that well, it was something about hearing that, and then of course seeing him later when he did his next album, and he wasn't even sure if he's going to sing again, and I mean, it's just a lot of things surrounding that. So that's definitely one I'll kind of put in this category. Again, made me even sadder because this was kind of a slow music dying. It wasn't a overnight thing. Even though he did come back and he was able to figure out how to sing again, because again, it was like from here down he had to devise a number of different ways just to kind of keep air pressure to sing to any degree. But he ended up doing a few albums. I think he did a couple albums. He appeared at, was it Live Aid, I believe, did an appearance there, and all kinds of stuff. So definitely kind of give a shout out to Teddy, I should say. But yeah, like I said, again, just so many greats we could throw out there. Like I just actually slipped Petty a moment ago. So, even Tom Petty, and there's just so many. So it's one of the sad things about us getting older and having all these great years to enjoy all this music is, you know, more and more people are, we're kind of losing them. So anyway, again, man, great contest. Thanks for, you know, asking a question to kind of make me go back in and reflect on some of those things. And, you know, best of luck. So as always, thanks for watching, VC, and we will talk to you guys soon.